I play Dragon Drop, a game that has art by a good friend of mine, Green. The idea of the game is quite simple. Basically, you and up to 3 other players get together, and with your Fire Blast, you knock down blocks in an arena and try to send your opponents to their doom. Similar games that I can think of are stuff like Bomberman, where you have to blow your opponents up, or the Monkey Fight minigame in Super Monkey Ball, where you have to punch your opponents off of a platform. I've heard there's like a similar game that, might have been an inspiration for this from Kirby, but I don't know that for certain. It's honestly a fun little time though, with how many different varieties of dragons you can have, as well as all the little, hats and whatnot you can pop on your dragon, as well as the fact that there are like 7 different game modes. They're clearly trying to take this idea and get as much mileage as they can out of it. You've got your typical stock and timed, where a stock is going to be you with a limited amount of lives, and timed is going to be, just keep on going until you run out of time and see who did the best. There's a Dragon Dash mode, which honestly I think is probably the least interesting, because it's mainly about how fast you can walk. You still try to attack each other, and if you fall, you end up losing points and whatnot. But I'd definitely say that's the least interesting game mode. Then you've got Quick Draw, where you only get 1 life, which is pretty wild, honestly. And it's just a good, quick way of making a tense fight. Then you have Speed Stock, where all of your characters are super fast, and that might be my favourite one personally, just because I just find it fun to watch the dragons all go crazy. It's so frenetic that you kind of get lost sometimes. There's Stage Destruction, where your points are actually primarily from destroying the stage, and not actually from knocking your opponents off. In fact, in that one, if you fall off, or you cause one of your opponents to fall off, you end up losing points. And while that seems counterintuitive, it does lead to a little bit of an interesting dynamic. Now you've got to be careful to get as much carnage as possible without causing yourself or anyone else to get caught up in it. Because then a third person might end up catching up to you and overtaking you, which I think that's actually kind of interesting, and I can't believe, I've never seen something like that before. Then they have Updrop, which is an interesting take. Instead of the blocks falling downwards, they actually go upwards. This means that sometimes the blocks get in your way because you can't see your dragon anymore. They cause your dragon to go upwards, so now you can't see them anymore, you have to quickly get down. And of course, the main concept of falling into the gaps, you got to avoid falling to your doom. The only problem with it is that because of the fact that you're going upwards, there's a lot of wiggle room, so these tend to go on a little bit longer for my liking, because it's so much easier to save yourself from certain doom in those scenarios. But it's not the end of the world, and it's still a fairly fun game mode. Even with all that being said, I still think they could technically take it further. If you had the ability to add items into the gameplay mode, like say you got one which allowed you to blast 1 that let you go take out 3 rows at once, or even just 2 rows at once, that would be huge. Like, that could be really interesting. So I think there's still more they can do with this, and given the game is still in early access, I think there's a lot more that they are planning to do with it. In fact, in the loading screen when you start up the game, it shows you some of the planned features they have for the game, including a creative mode, live stream integration, special events, and even a story mode, which I definitely want to revisit when the time comes. This is overall a simple idea being brought to its limits, which I really find endearing, and of course with the art style where all the dragons look like little chubby beans is honestly really cute as well. Also, the soundtrack, as you can hear in the background, is pretty darn good in my opinion. It's really nice. My only problem is that some of the menus seem to be a little laggy? Not critically so, but I can tell that in some menus, the menu is actually a little less smooth than the actual gameplay, which is just kind of strange, but it's not a major problem. Overall, I just think it's a fun game, and I can't wait to see more updates to this, and I'll probably cover it again next year after it's had a bunch more updates done to it. But even now, I definitely recommend checking it out. You can find it on Steam for £4, I believe it's also on itch.io, and yeah, once again, highly recommend it.